Fires a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Nat, brought to you by OTS. I am your host, Natalie, but most people call me Nat. I am back, guys, from the Bay. I was just there to watch the Warriors. Got two wins, so I'm excited about that. But I'm even more excited about my guest who is joining me today, Mr. Sean Alcide. He is a journalist. He's also host of the Destined for Greatness podcast. And most recently, he's joined the Buzzer team, or he will be creating some content for Buzzer rather. And I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that himself and tell you where you can find him. But definitely give Sean a follow. He's a good guy, even though he's a Lakers fan. We're not going to be talking about the Lakers today, though. But he's definitely a great guy and really someone who I consider an ally. You know, women in this area, we need men who support us like Sean, and he's definitely one for me. So I really appreciate you coming on today, taking the time to speak with me. And we're going to talk about the Wolves and the Nets, because the Warriors will be matching up with them. And Sean just recently had a visit to go cover them. So yeah, I'm Sean. Thank you.
Thank you. Listen, I always tell you, Nat is a legend. So to be up here, anybody who has a hive on Twitter, the amount of people that have come at my neck on behalf of the discourse me and Nat have had is mind-boggling. So
these are not nice things that you're saying about me.
No, that's the thing. I've never not said a nice thing about you. It's the team. I've said something about the Warriors, and Nat will disagree, and then the hive just swarms in together. And I'm just like, what did I get myself into? So
that's not intentional. I hope you know that. Like, I've never.
I know. That's what makes it even more legendary, that you don't got to call them. They just pull up. They know what time it is. So it's an honor to be here on the Nat podcast. I remember you telling me about this idea before you launched. And I was like, yo, do it. Like, you have a voice. People listen to you. You know what you're talking about. You're an avid watcher. It made too much sense to not do this. So this is dope. This is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you shared some exciting news the other day, and I just want to talk about that a little bit, because I'm really happy and excited for you. What are you going to be doing for Buzzer?
So the concept is really funny. I cover, amongst the things that I cover out here, particularly in Connecticut, I cover this Danbury High School and Danbury basketball team, football and basketball. So when it just kind of happened, some players made some big plays during the football season, and I'm on the field, and I would walk up to them while I'm filming, some of the shots. And I'm like, yo, you're out of your mind right now, man. Like, you're playing on another level. And I did it once naturally, right, organically. And then it happened again. And then players started to say it to me when they see me, like, yo, you're out of your mind. That's fire. That's dope. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize it was a thing. So I started doing it while breaking down film of NBA, NFL, whatever it may be. And I would post them on Twitter and Instagram. And I just recently got TikTok. Like, my students talked me into TikTok a month ago. So I recently got on TikTok and started.
I'm still trying to do TikTok. It's rough for us, right?
It's rough. I was like, I had enough social. Twitter's all I really need, to be honest. But I was like, TikTok, whatever. And Jasmine Watkins, who is just really, really dope. And
one of my sorors. Shout out to Jazz.
She's the bomb. Her and I connected about, doing some content for TikTok, on TikTok for Buzzer. And my segment, You Out of Your Mind, would be what Buzzer would specifically want to use on their platform. And I said, let's do it. So, as of officially, about a week ago, everything was official, and I'm creating content with basketball for the most part, but whatever really is crazy going on, break down the film in the most Sean way possible, with a player who made something ridiculously amazing happen, or a team who did something ridiculously amazing happen. So that's what I'm doing.
Very dope. So one of the things I actually find most impressive about you, that's my favorite thing. And of course, Sean is a dope content creator. I only have those on my show. You guys know that. But you also are an educator, or you work in education. And I just always find that to be incredibly powerful as a Black man, you know? And so I know like we're not here to talk about that, but I just like wanted to shout you out for that and give you your flowers. Cause like to me, that's incredible work that I wish more people could and would do. And I know you have a love for it, but you also have a love for content creation. So Sean is just really great with his students. Like he's always like posting videos and things about them. And it's incredible. I find it really inspiring. So I just want to say thank you for that and like give you your flowers.
Thank you. Listen, that first of all, I appreciate, that love. That means a lot. My ESL teacher in third grade changed my life. I'm not from here for anybody who doesn't know. I was born in Haiti, born and partially raised, and then I came here when I was like 8, 9 years old. Had to learn the climate, America, the language, and then school. My ESL teacher was the greatest person I had ever met, with how much time she dedicated to teaching me the English language, which is why I'm like now obsessed with the language. Like I'm a grammar police. Like I
Oh
used to get teased
Lord.
for not speaking English and having an accent. Now I'm like, I gotta master this thing so that I never get teased for speaking ill, again. And so for me, that experience was like, I want to be that for, other kids, and I teach in inner city schools. I'm a chartered school teacher. So the kids who I'm teaching predominantly look like me. So for me, it means,
Amazing.
even more to
Yes,
know that I can have that impact on other kids. So thank you for the shout
absolutely.
out. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I hope you're not too annoying with the grammar. I used to talk to this journalist and I'm a lawyer, so I consider myself someone who I mean knows how to write and speak well. Um but there's just times like you're chilling or whatever, and he was just like always correcting grammar. I used to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like you're mad annoying.
Yeah. No, I think there's context that it's different. If we're chilling, nobody's checking for grammar. It's like literally if it's supposed to be correct and you're just not either catching it, then it's not like it's not if we're at a
Right.
barbecue or something, I'm not checking for that's not
I
necessary.
think it used to be kind of like one of those things, like, but I know that like the proper way to do this because,
Right,
so why
right,
aren't you? Because I'm chilling. That's why.
right, right. I'm off the clock. I'm off the clock right now. I'm chilling.
So what brought you now? Were you in Minnesota? Is that where you were covering the game? You went out
Oh,
to
go ahead. I'll let you finish your career. You brought me back. We were not in Minnesota. My homegirl and I, Camille, who works for the Nets, um, um, she had met someone who works for the Timberwolves. And they, through, how corporate works, front offices, they talk to one another and things of that nature. And she was going out to Minnesota because, well, she was invited to Minnesota. And she's like, "Yo, Sean, I have a really dope opportunity. If you want to come, it could be a great, trip, great opportunity. You get to talk to some people, shake some hands." So they ended up hosting us that entire, trip, where we got a tour of the facility, the front office, like everything behind the scenes, like from sales to vice president to club courtside seats and all that other stuff. So it
so this
was
was
just
sort
like
of random. It wasn't like a
it ran.
plan.
Right. For me, it was random. For her, it was like it's along the lines of her work. She works for the Nets. She used to work for the WNBA, and he works for the Timberwolves. So, like for them, it was very like, all right, this is just kind of like business as usual. This is how it
Right.
works in corporate world, I guess, in the NBA. But for me, it was really random. She just brought it up, and I was like, heck yeah, like why not? So we flew out there, and we got a chance to get some amazing, amazing, opportunities, talking to different people. Bumped into Alex Rodriguez at dinner a couple of times in the thing because he's part owner now of the
Yeah. Did you like have any like meaningful conversations with him, or was it just
No, not really.
okay?
Alex Rodriguez had so many people just in and out of his grill all
I'm
day.
sure.
And I did not want to be one of those people. So I was just kind of like, I was really there, like, just, trying to learn as much on the possible, seeing the behind the scenes stuff with how that organization works. So I'm like watching the players. I spent a lot of time around the players, checked in with a couple of them, things of that nature. So I think that for me was mostly what I was focused on. And then obviously, being able to cover that game and, take some shots and things like that. That was really what I cared about, to be to be quite honest.
So, any interesting tidbits from the players that you
I
can
like them.
share?
That I could share, I would say just watching them up close. I was talking to my man Zach. Shout out to Zach. He lives in Minnesota as well. Zach Noble. Um, they have a really promising young core. I think they have a lot of talent in the young core that could become something. It's like I
In
don't want to say they're the
Minnesota?
Warriors, pre-Warriors, but they have like Ant Edwards, who is an absolute stud.
But
They
I
got
feel
a
like
pretty.
this is what we've been saying about the Wolves for years, right? Like
It
the
is.
young
It is.
core, the young core. Ant feels a little different though. I'll give it to him. He feels
And,
a little
is
different.
that's what I'm saying. They haven't had the Ant Edwards. They've had the Carl Towns. They've had D'Lo for a couple of years now. Even though him and Cat seems like they're never really there together because they're often injured. Like whether it's D'Lo or Cat or
Right.
whatever it is, but they haven't had an Ant. Ant could become one of those elite players and like be that guy that could, help that team break, the never making the playoffs to get in the first round. And then from there, keep building. Maybe they get a couple free agents to come there and
Didn't he
become
just have
something.
like an insane stat line with like no assists, but like crazy high points total? I'm gonna look.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was something insane. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. And the people there, they love Ant. Every time he touches the ball, everyone's like standing on their feet, thinking he's going to do something amazing. And I didn't realize before this season how like he shoots the ball fairly well. Like, and he's a confident, like shooting the ball. He's pretty confident. I know coming out of college, they used to say he was a slasher. He was more of like getting to the basket.
Yeah.
This guy's knocking down shots and he's shooting them pretty confidently. So that's, I think, the
He dropped
ceiling.
40. Dropped 40 with 0 assists.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
I love Ant though. Like he's great. I mean, his personality, his
Mm-hmm.
interviews, everything. So yeah, I mean, I would love that for him and for them. You always like to see when an organization can turn it around. For the players, I don't care
Right.
so much about ownership, but
Right.
for the players. So that would be really dope. But I just feel like the Wolves are like, because I mean, at one time, and I get it that like Andrew Wiggins maybe didn't turn out the way people thought he was going to be, although he's thriving right now on Golden State. But they had a time where they had, Wiggs, they had Carl Towns, they had Zach,
Mhm.
and sometimes you think about like, yo, they really gave up Zach LaVine and he's just like flourishing, in Chicago. So I just feel like, I don't know if it was the coaching situation, if it's like, I mean, a lot of it's the org. We understand that. But, I just feel like for the Wolves, it's always like, they got this young core and it could be this young core, this young core. And then, just nothing ever happens with them.
It's very interesting that, and this is like full. This is the first time I'm saying this to anybody. I don't know what this is gonna. I hope this doesn't get me in trouble or anything. But people inside the organization, you talk about coaching. Spoke to some people. Tibbs was not very liked within the organization, from players to
Really.
front office folks. So it ended sour in Minnesota. I know that. But now that
How
you brought
many
up
years was he
coaching,
there?
a few, not that long. I think he left shortly after Jimmy left. After Jimmy got traded,
But
Tibbs.
Jimmy still likes him. That's like the only person, right? Because
Yeah,
they had their
he's from
relationship from
Chicago.
Chicago.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
But
he has a reputation, right, for how he runs his players. And
mhm.
I don't know what he's like as a personality outside of that, but he definitely has a rep.
Very, very different from what I heard. It was just very like like exclusive. He didn't really like letting people in as much, even people who were part of the organization, in terms of like practices and things of that nature. So it was very like I was like, what? I mean, I wasn't surprised, but I'm like, it went to that extreme. So it's funny that you bring up coaching because I'm like, maybe that had a lot to do with why a lot of the guys are no longer there. You know,
Right.
it's not a very conducive culture.
Well, I mean, on some level, I mean, that was a similar situation in Golden State, right? Like Mark Jackson before Kerr came. I mean, I don't like hate on Mark the way a lot of people do, but that was part of it, right? Like he was like really secretive. He didn't want to let, the Golden State brass wanted to be a little bit more involved and have knowledge of things. And
Mm-hmm.
he was just like, not as my shit.
Yo, so
Essentially.
how much do you think, as a Warriors fan, I know you're go hard for your Warriors.
Mhm.
How much do you think Mark actually has to do or not have to do with the Warriors, the current Warriors? Because a lot of people was like, yo, that's his team. And some people were like, no, Mark didn't do that. Like they couldn't do nothing with Mark.
Yeah, I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. It's funny because where people come down on this sometimes I think has to do a little bit with race because they
Hmm.
kind of feel like he was a black man and he got his team taken away from him and wasn't treated fairly. Um, and Warriors fans will tell you, many of them, not me, but they'll just talk about like just a lot of the stuff that he did, like the recording of conversations and
Hmm.
you know some people thought he was a little cuckoo, right? Like, I mean, when Steph had got hurt and he brought him to his church to have them like pray, and it's like one of those kind of churches, so even for Steph was kind of like, what, like what's happening? Like they're laying hands on him,
I
stuff
didn't
like
know that.
that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and he had like some issues like within his coaching staff. So and then I think there was also the idea that he maybe didn't also bring in the best people. Like they were kind of like, we're empowering you, like we want you to get the best coaches, and you
Mhm.
may not necessarily have the best coaches. And he really didn't mesh well with like the ownership and the team over there. Um so that's one side of it, right? That's one perspective, and then there's the perspective, a lot of times when I assess things in the NBA, and some people don't like this because they're like, you can't compare them, but I do. Like the running of a team is like corporate America. It's no different. It's a business, and like these are like, for the Warriors, they're white venture capitalists. Like I've worked in that world. Like to be one of those kind of people, you're a certain personality,
Mhm.
and to be black and when you work in like structures like that, you do often feel like your job is always on the line, like you can't trust people. Sometimes if you think it's in jeopardy, you might get like a little paranoid. So I can understand, honestly, him recording conversations to protect
Mhm.
himself. I see that all the time as an
Mhm.
employment lawyer. That's not crazy to me. So when I hear people describe him as like this kook, I don't really like that.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that everything he did was perfect, but I don't really like that. So I think that Mark Jackson was critical though for two things. One, he kind of set like their defensive identity, right? I mean, some of the principles may have changed a little bit, but just to be a team that buys into defense first and plays defense, and he laid the framework for that. And I mean, Kerr does give him credit for that. But what I really think was huge for him is I think he was probably really big in instilling confidence in like Steph and Clay. And I mean, they both obviously have confidence in their shooting ability, but he was like the first to go on record and be like, they're the best,
Backcourt of all
shooting
time. Yeah.
backcourt of all time, which in my opinion now is just like a qualifier because it's just like they're one of the top backcourts of all time, right? They're in the
Mhm.
conversation for best.
Mhm.
And when he said that, though, people were like, what? Like, oh, you're crazy. Like, you're just, and he's like, nah, man, I'm telling you. And I think he, like, Mark Jackson's old school, he played for like, the Knicks squad. Like, he played for some of those teams, and so I think like that, like, nah, like, you're the shit kind of mentality, like a dog, like, putting that in them. I think that was really good for them. And I mean, if people remember initially, like, Steph didn't necessarily want him gone. He liked Mark.
Yeah.
So, um, it was it's unfortunate in that I just don't like the way that he was painted. I do think probably some of his offensive philosophies were a little outdated, but I'm someone who's pretty critical of Kerr. You follow me, so you probably see the tweets, and some people think that's not fair. And it's a thing I have with coaches in general, right? I mean, it was kind of like the Belichick Brady thing, but it's just like when they're winning, they're playing good. All the credit is given to the coach. When they're not playing well or something happens, people are just like, the coach can't go out there and do it. Well, then what the hell? What can we criticize the coach for? Like, I don't understand. And so with Kerr, people sometimes forget like Kerr had the chance to go to New York or to go
with
to the
Phil,
Bay.
with Phil, his
Right.
guy.
Now, I tend to think if he would have went to New York, he'd be back on TV in the media, right? Like,
For sure.
and he wouldn't be being praised like this now, right? Now, so my point is that like how we perceive him was based on the situation that he went to, and I think it's a little misguided when people are just like, they won a championship, and with Mark, they weren't like, it just ignores so much. It ignores the fact that like Steph was about to be hitting his prime, right? Which like he was hitting that age where like people peak. He had just made the All-Star. He had that 50-point game in Madison Square Garden that put him on the map. Like Steph was going to be great regardless, right? So he was going to like reach that. And I think what Steve Kerr came and did is he put in a system which he based off of like what Steph did in college. So that's the context for where it came from. But he put in a system that helped like make the others better, right? Like to elevate the others. And so I do think he should get credit for that, but I think it just, like I said, it overlooks so much. And like these guys were going to get better. They were reaching their primes, And so just to suggest that like Mark Jackson, like that they wouldn't have went further than the first round, I think that's disingenuous. I think that's a way to like try to make him look bad. So like I said, I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. I think he was important like for the original iteration, and Steve Kerr is here now and he's done some great things. I also think he's a little overcredited for some things, and I think Kerr is probably an above average coach, arguably good. And that's it. I wouldn't go further than that. I don't consider him great. I don't think he's an X's and O's coach. I don't think that he's great at in-game adjustments. I think he's pretty like rigid in his views and beliefs. What he's often credited for is like managing personalities, you know. That doesn't move me as a coach. Like I understand like with stars, you have to be able to do that, but like I mean, I don't even think Katie was a big fan of Kerr. So I don't know how well he really was at managing personalities. Like I think it's pretty easy for anyone to manage Steph, to be honest. Like Kerr's job is made easier because of Steph's personality, because he sets the tone, right? Sort of like Tim Duncan, right? Like Pop could be the way he is because Tim Duncan was okay with it. If Tim Duncan wasn't okay, Pop's coaching style wouldn't work because it started with Tim, right? So it's the same thing. Like Steph is a very amenable person. So a lot of the stuff that Kerr can get away with, I don't think it would work with other stars. It certainly didn't work with Kevin. And so, that's why I said sometimes I think he's a little like overcredited and praised. Like I think it has a lot more to do with Steph than it does with Kerr. And that's my opinion.
Fair. Can't argue that much. That was definitely a lot of nuance, which people usually leave outside of this conversation. Because it's
and
like
you can't get into on Twitter.
No, you'll go all day and people are just going to start getting mad and saying, well, you're an idiot. And I'm like, okay, I don't have time for all this. Like once you start going name calling, all right, I'm out. I don't got time for that.
Idiot. That's so mild. That's a good day for me when they just call me an idiot.
Mind-boggling. I don't know how y'all do it.
So what were you seeing? Because we're about to play. The Warriors are about to play the Minnesota Timberwolves and then the Nets, right? And I don't know how much you've been keeping up with the Warriors season so far, but like I'm sure we have some injuries, but the biggest storyline is like Steph and this shooting slump of his, and people have like all their theories. So I'm curious, like, do you have any thoughts on it?
So I don't Steph, I think anytime you're as, you know, as a high volume shooter like Steph, you're going to go through slumps. I think it is magnified because it is Steph. And yes, it's real. It's not like he's not really slumping. He has not shot well. Somebody the other day posted a graphic that said Steph's shooting numbers look like tour dates.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, come on, like, but I'm not worried about this. We know the Warriors are gonna be fine. The team's gonna be fine. Um, there's no concern as far as Steph. He might pop out the next game and hit 50, right? That's the kind of player Steph is. He can just snap out of it just like that. Similar to Clay a couple years back. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah,
Clay went through a slump, and I think it was in the playoffs too. And people were like, "Yo, nah, yo, Clay, does he not have it?" Clay was like, "Yo, like I'm gonna turn it around," and then he turned around the next game and went crazy. So I don't think
yeah.
for shooters who are like master shooters like Steph, you're gonna miss. You can't make every shot, and sometimes it's gonna be over magnified because they start to look at the data over the course of games or even a week or so. But we know what Steph like we know what Steph is. I'm not worried about that. As if I was a Warriors fan, I wouldn't be concerned about that.
You think that would be the case, but they are the most concerned. I listen to people outside the fan base are just like, whatever, it's Steph, he'll be fine. And that is how I feel. I mean, I understand people are a little bit more concerned than normal because it's extended. Like he's had slumps before. Maybe a week or two. This is like, now going on like a month and a half. So it's extended with some good games mixed in there. But like
Right.
he hasn't been consistently shooting at the level he does, and he's been pretty inefficient. And I think there's different things that contribute to it, but honestly, I'm not trying to overanalyze it because, like you said, he's Steph, and he's always been somewhat of a high variance player anyway because he takes threes a lot and he's a volume shooter. But I still think like people like, are you really trying to tell the guy who's best at shooting the basketball like what he needs to do to improve? Like, do you think that he won't be able to figure this out? So I find it all a little bit interesting, but there are people who think like he's in decline and this is the beginning. And I'm curious what you think
Mid-season,
about that.
he's in decline mid-season after breaking the all-time record. What is
That's what I'm just like, guys, if he didn't have like, he was player of the month. Like
was MVP for like the first 2.5 months of the season.
Yeah, I was just like, so declines don't work like that. And declines also don't work like because you're missing shots, that's not a decline in itself. It's why you're missing stuff. So like if he couldn't create separation still, if he couldn't get to his spots,
Right.
if his like he didn't have that first step anymore, no burst, that's when you start to say, okay, you're starting to see the signs. None of that's true. Like there's this crazy stat, but like when you look at his shots, he's literally missing the wide open ones. Like the ones that are contested, he's shooting great percentages.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
his wide open shots. And so it's like, that's not anyone doing that. That's him. On some level, it's probably a little mental at this point. And even the greatest can kind of get into their own heads.
Absolutely.
But I just think and in a way, I think it's a little unfair because they're basically comparing him to himself. So they're saying like, you've been this great before. So since you're not doing that now, you're bad. They're not comparing him against like the fields. Like if Damian Lillard or Russ Westbrook was just basically putting up these numbers, they'd be praised. Like I think last night versus who did they play? I was just there and I'm already forgetting. Oh, Dallas, right? He had like a stat line that was something like 18-9-9 or 18-9. It's like something like that, right? Those numbers. I'm like, Chris Paul gets praised for that kind of stat line all the fucking time. But Steph, oh yeah, like it was an issue to people. The Warriors have lost 13 games. They are in the second seed and people were freaking out. I promise you, Sean.
Listen, I'm not. I see it, right? Shelly, no, Chanelli. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Chanelli.
my
Chanelli, who
Jamaican sister.
I love watching you guys tweet Warrior games because it's fun. It's like you guys are so into this thing, and I'm like, and I'm laughing sometimes. Sometimes I want to reply, but I'm like, nope, I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want no smoke. But like I'm seeing these retweets, and I'm like, I did not know Warriors Twitter was this way. Like they're so paranoid. I'm like, for a team that's doing so well, who has a team, we're excited about Clay coming back, which I'm kind of going to pivot to in a second. Why are they worried about stats and his shooting numbers? That's all that's going to come and go. It's going to go. What I will ask you though, are you concerned about anything with Clay? Him with that knee. I heard he had like was it soreness and they
Yeah, he
sat him
played
out.
last night. He didn't play the Utah game. That was Sunday. So that was
Okay,
unexpected. We didn't know. And then he played last night, and yesterday was his best game. It was his
I
his
heard.
most complete game. So my worry about Clay is not really the knee. Like if you have a surgically repaired knee and you haven't played for 2 years, I think you're going to experience some soreness. That's not
Right.
that wasn't alarming to me. What was slightly concerning, and not like a big concern, but what was slightly concerning for me was what he was doing when he first got back. And I was giving him a little bit of leeway because he was pressing a lot, wasn't playing within the flow of the offense. Clay's never been a big passer, but he was just like, if he got the rock, he was shooting it. Like there was no,
You got to make
and
up. You got to make up for lost time.
I get it. I mean, right now his usage for the minutes he plays is like the highest among like any player, right?
Mm,
Like everything with him. So, which is fine because like you need Clay to get back into rhythm, you do. But it just at some points it was hurting them. Like you could watch it, like there were some bad possessions, they were wasted, and it just like there were times he definitely should have passed, or it wasn't
mm.
like the best shot, or he was just doing things that's not in his normal repertoire, like putting the ball on the floor to like go create. Like that's not Clay.
He was doing crossover step backs and all.
I mean, it wasn't that extreme, but he was just trying to like isolate and do a little bit too much. So
I get it. I
um
get it.
the reason it concerned me was mostly because Clay is the number 2 option, yes, and you need him to be in rhythm going into the postseason. But Andrew and Poole are still really important, right? Like you cannot get Clay like where he needs to be at the expense of costing them where they've been, right? So it's like a delicate dance, right? And I wouldn't want to be the person who has to deal with that, but you really can't, because at the end of the day, you do need Andrew. You need his 18 to 20 points, what he's going to give you. He's going to still play defense, but like this is the most engaged he's ever been, right? He says, I've never been this open before. You have Kevin Garnett talking about like it's the environment, it's there in Golden State, right? He's obviously maybe a player that needs to be put in position, right, to kind of be engaged. So you don't want him to like become unengaged, right? Like you don't
Right.
want that to happen.
Right.
And then with Poole, like Poole is the second best shot creator on the team after Steph. He's the only other person who can like put pressure really on the, well, not the only person who can put pressure on the rim, but like he's the only other shot creator. And
Mm,
so like you need Poole too.
mhm.
You need him too. And so it did seem like when Clay came back, they were struggling um to play next to him. And it's new for both of them. So that's to be expected. But I just was wondering like how long of a leash they were going to give Clay. I don't know, someone talked to him or he just figured it out, but he was great yesterday. I mean, he said he was doing Magic Johnson passes, and he really was. Like it's the most
Mhm.
plays ever passed. But I didn't really care about the passing. It's just like the shots look good. There were a couple of times he pressed, but for the most part, it was within the flow of the offense.
Well,
So
that's good. Okay.
yeah. Um, so yeah, so we play the Timberwolves first. I think that game is tomorrow, actually. So what are your thoughts on the Timberwolves so far? I mean, we talked about it a little bit in terms of them like possibly having something going on there. But like, what do you think about them as a team so far this year?
So they're a game above 500 at
Yep.
24 and 23. I think a lot of that. I think the reason why they're not better is because D'Lo has missed some time and Cat has missed some time. I think they're a better team than is on paper. I was talking to a couple of people on Twitter the other night. I'm like, yo, the Wolves beating the Nets without Kevin Durant was not like a big upset because reports came out that James Harden is no longer happy. Somebody made a joke, say, see what happens when you lose to the Timberwolves. I'm like, Timberwolves are a pretty good team. Like
Yeah.
beyond those main three guys that we talked about, they have some good depth. They have, Malik Beasley coming off the bench. I mean, he doesn't come off the bench, but he's a part
People
of
are
that
talking
rotation.
like them, like they're still like they're the Kings or something, but they're not. They're a better team.
Right. They're not a bad team. They have some really good players. They got the big man, I forgot his name, who comes off the bench and he got like 10 offensive rebounds the other night. And I'm like, yo, this dude's a beast. He's running the court full speed. Somebody grabs him. He's still going up, finishing for the N1. So I think the Timberwolves have very, very good young core surrounded with some nice veterans sprinkled in there. They got Pat Bev. We know what Pat Bev is going to bring. I know nobody likes Pat Bev, but Pat Bev is going to be Pat Bev. I think they could make a push for that, that playoff seed between the 8 to 10 range, and who knows what could happen. But I don't think the Timberwolves are a bad team, and I think if the Warriors go in there, is it at home? Do you know, or is it in Minnesota?
No, it's gonna be in Golden State, and we won the first one against them, which was a close game. Right. I think everyone played in that game. I'm trying to remember, but it was close. And Ant put up like 48 or 49, even though we won that game. The last game they got blown out. Draymond and I don't think Steph, neither one of them played that game. Right. So it'll be interesting. Andrew Wiggins seems to like to go off on his old team. He put a couple of posters on Cat in that first game.
Yeah.
But no, they're definitely good. When you say that, I think their record probably would be better if they didn't deal with some injuries. I don't know that they would really be a higher seed, though. You think? I mean, are they a better team? I don't think they would be top 4. So are they a better team than Dallas or Denver, who are the 5 and 6 right now?
No, I wouldn't say better than Dallas or Denver. I think they're right where they're supposed to be as far as seeding.
But their record would be a little better.
Their record might be better. But I think as constructed, they're a potential 8 to a 10 seed that could go into the play-in. And I think they could win that, that play-in game and get into the 8 seed. So again, because they have guys who can go off. We know what Cat is. He's a proven all-star. We don't think he is, what he says he is as far as the best big man shooting center of all time. I strongly disagree with that.
That's a little delusional, but I feel like because of all he's been through, I won't go hard on him.
Right. I like Cat a lot. I don't really think that take is a great take. But they got guys like Anthony Edwards who looks like he lives for that moment. Like, again, he's in the arena. I'm watching him very closely. Every time he touches the rock, everybody's like on their feet, like expecting him to do something crazy, whether it's a crazy move or catching a body, going into the paint, because we know he's like that. And then they have, the young vet. They got Malik Beasley. They got Nowell, the small forward who plays great defense. He actually spent a lot of time on Kyrie in the second half when Kyrie started. Jalen Nowell. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Nowell. They have a decent team, man. I just think, again, because they are in a conference where, we're talking about a 5th seed potentially being Dallas or Denver, and the Lakers were starting to get healthy. Not to talk about them.
You think the Lakers will pass them or overtake them? I know we're not going to talk about the Lakers, but do you think the Lakers are going to get out of the play-in spot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that optimism is me being a fan and saying, okay, we cannot go home in the play-in game. Yes, I think so. I don't think any other.
I don't know that. I'm not saying that they would lose, but do you think that they're going to finish the season not in a play-in spot, like 6 or higher?
Yeah, I think they will.
Okay.
I think they will. I think they'll turn it around just enough because right now they're in the 8th seed and they're only like a game and a half out of Denver in that 6th spot.
Right.
So I think they will. I don't think they're again Minnesota's who's in front of them and Denver. Man, that's tough now that you said it. Dallas, Utah, Memphis, Golden State, and Phoenix. Those are
Denver's going to be getting a guy back too by the name of
Murray. I
Jamal
know
Murray.
Jamal Murray. And the 7 to 10 is that playing seed, right?
Yep.
Oh man, they gotta get to work. If they're gonna do it, they're only a couple games behind Dallas right now. AD being back hopefully starts to turn some of that around. Hopefully Russ. I do think they're gonna have to make a trade though. Something not with Russ necessarily. They're gonna have to find a way to either get Jeremy Grant or one of these guys, which I don't know.
Jeremy Grant said
exactly
he is trying to be like the key focus on the team.
That's what I'm hearing. I don't know what Jeremy Grant is trying to do. You wanted to get paid. You got paid on a terrible team in Detroit. Now you want to be the man. Like you don't want to play, second fiddle to LeBron and AD. Who does Jeremy Grant think he is? He's a good player, but who does he like? He thinks he's a franchise player. I don't know.
Really?
So that'll be interesting. Maybe I don't know. I think the Lakers are going to recircle the Buddy Hield talks. Not reporting anything, just some noise that I heard that they're going to recircle that to see if they could try to get their hands on him. But I don't see how that happens now that you traded all your assets to get Russ. And I don't think they're trading Russ. I'm not buying it. They're trading Ross for John Wall. That makes no sense to trade Russ for John Wall. John Wall doesn't play basketball anymore. Like he hasn't played in God knows since last year.
I wondered if John Wall wants to come back and play basketball because he just seems pretty complacent for a guy who hasn't touched the court in a lot of years. But I don't know him, so I'm not saying he is. It's something I wonder about.
Yeah, I don't know. The Lakers do have to do something if they're going to climb, over that. And I think Rob, I'm hearing he's pitching THT and first round picks and Kendrick Nunn to try to get, see what he can get out there. I don't know how much that lands him, considering the Lakers don't have a first rounder they could trade until 2027.
Mm-hmm.
How intriguing is that for, a team who is trying to get the best or the most they can get for Jeremy Grant or Buddy Hield or Harrison Barnes, maybe even in Sacramento, because I know they're going to have a fire sale. So we'll see, but I think Minnesota, I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota's stuck in that number 7 spot and wrote it out because, again, even D'Angelo Russell, like, this is the first time I saw him play live. That guy's like, he's almost mastered that little mid-range type shot, and he's just so confident. He had like 10 assists. He had 20 and 10 and like 6, and it just looks so easy. The game
he doesn't
really
drive
easy.
a lot, though. It'd be good if he added that to his game some. But yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, he's a finesse player. He doesn't want basket. He doesn't want to be at the basket, where he's gonna have to, take some contact. He's gonna pull up every time right before he crosses that free throw line, hit that nice little floater or that nice little fall away shot, or he's gonna get his guy down low, Cat or the other guy. So I like what the Wolves have, and I'm intrigued to see where they can go from here.
So I'm curious, you were around the team. So like, did it seem like Ant and Kat, like they have like a good rapport? Because, when Jimmy was there were all these rumors, right? And so I think part of that, like their team chemistry may have been off, but, because you've seen a couple of times now, like, I don't want to say calling him out, but like Ant saying things in his post game, like, yeah, I told Kat, like, you got to do this. And, kind of like, and I'm just wondering, like right now, that's fine. But like over time, I'm thinking of situations like LaMarcus Aldridge and Dame in Portland. And how even in a way, like Kevin Durant was in OKC first, but then Russ came there and sort of became a little bit more beloved. And I'm wondering if any of that at all impacts Kat or Will, because it kind of does seem like Ant is the one that's like,
Yo, now that you said that, you're good at this. Now that you said that, this is crazy because I never even thought about all of that. So I took a couple of videos at the game as well as some pictures. And while I was running back the videos, I was doing a little bit of editing, things like that. And maybe I was too in the moment. I did notice it, but I didn't make much of it at the game in real time. But there were people like heckling Kat, like while he was at the free throw line. There were fans who sat not far behind us that were like saying things at Cat. And I was just like, I've never seen that
Wolves
happen.
fans?
Wolves fans that were saying things about Cat, like whether it's being soft or something slick. And I was like, that's weird. But again, as I mentioned before, every time Ant touches the ball, it's like everybody's on their feet, like it's the national anthem or something. So I'm like, it's kind of interesting. But I did notice when they were warming up, all the guys were out there. Ant was out there. Cat was like the last person to come out. Cat came out so late, and this is like right before game time. Now, this is like I've never seen nothing like this before, really, where it's about to be the national anthem, and all the guys are out there getting shots up, doing their little handshakes, whatever it is, dancing. It was so noticeable that the my homegirl Camille, who was with me, was like, "Yo, is Cat even here? Like, is he in the building?" And I know he was in the
Right.
building because I watched him warm up, but he went back in, and all the guys were out there, goofing around, and Cat was like the lone guy that I didn't notice. But I just thought, that was common. Like maybe that's how Cat does. He goes back in and he comes out really late. But now maybe I'm overthinking you analyzing the
And
whole.
look, I don't know. It's so hard because I mean, he's not a player that I follow closely. I know that people think he's sort of soft, and I can't say I followed him closely, but it's hard because now when things happen, like I don't know, like is like I mean, he did deal with a lot. He went through like very tragic circumstances, so I'm sure that's not something you get over in a day. So it's like
Mhm.
I just don't know, but I remember LaMarcus Aldridge, there seemed to be a little bit of jealousy there, with Dame, that like Dame kind of like became the man. And I don't know, he didn't like really want to be there anymore. And so I just don't, I just wonder like right now it might be all good, but like if over time that could create an issue because I think chemistry among the team, like the players, was definitely something that maybe hurt them in the past. Because when Jimmy came, I think that they went to the postseason that year. Is it once or twice? Because I know one time he got like hurt, but they made it. But it was just like all this conflict and tension it seemed between, them.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering.
It's definitely. I'll tell you this. It's definitely Ant's team, based on the aura of Minnesota. Like
It's
everything
Ant's
is
team,
Anthony
which is
Edwards,
wild because like Kat, you're there and you were kind of like the franchise
all
guy, like
star,
this.
right? Like
Yeah,
and like
that's
jerseys. I walk in there, all the jerseys are Anthony Edwards jerseys, number one. I'm like, where's 32? What is going on? And again, Cat just seems like, I don't know. You're right. He did go through a lot. And I watched him like, I kept looking at him because even when he made big plays, there's not a lot of emotion coming out of him. Maybe he's just like in a point where he just doesn't really care about, being too rah-rah. But and one plays, he's like, he'll do his little flexing, but it's just so monotone, right? And even like there was a point where he got into it with somebody and he just kind of turned around and walked off. And I'm like, what's going Cat? Like,
Yeah, he's definitely
talk to
not
that
a
man.
number one option. He's not. Like he just that personality.
Yeah.
But he's an incredible player. And so
No, definitely a talented player.
um I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, I think, and watch things play out there. So they were playing the Nets, right? And you
Mhm.
had a lot of like commentary about Kyrie. I saw it on Instagram. I saw it on
Love Kyrie.
Twitter. So I'm just like, are you just a big Kai fan, or is this also like was he just so remarkable that night, or is it a combination of both?
A combination of both. I love Kyrie Irving. He's one of my favorite players in the entire league. It pains me to see all the stuff that's going on around him as far as like the whole vaccine, because I hate getting into all that stuff. Yo, it it was I'm such a big Kyrie guy, Nat, that I almost reacted to some hecklers a couple rows behind me going at Kyrie. And I don't know how do players zone out and leave like
I
how
don't
do
know.
they like, we're sitting literally we sat right behind the the Nets bench. There are people a couple rows behind us screaming things. I know if I can hear it, Kyrie could hear it because he's standing like
Right.
2 feet away from me. And I'm just like, how like he's not even looking. Like they're saying things like, Kyrie, I want to see your Vax card, or since you're this who invented COVID, or they're just saying weird things at him in like very nasty tones. And I turn around, I'm like, yo, I caught myself not reacting. in the moment because I'm like, yo, just let the man play basketball. Like he's here to play ball. He's not here to do all that other stuff. But yes, I'm a huge Kyrie guy. So first time I see Kyrie in person, I was definitely like just fascinated to be around him, to
Oh,
get
this is your
pictures
first
of
time
him.
watching him in person.
First time watching him in person.
Okay.
The last time I went, he it was in Barclays, but he doesn't play at Barclays, so I couldn't see him. But Kyrie and this that he is such a marksman. He is. I've never seen pacing like him by a point guard before. Kyrie comes up the court so calm. I feel like he's never taken a bad shot. Maybe I'm crazy because I was just too overwhelmed by what I was watching, but he is just so crafty. Like Anthony Edwards spent a lot of time guarding him. And Kyrie's just like putting him into some moves, and then he pulls up. And then he came down the court one time from like 25 feet, took a 3-point. I'm like, everyone's like, "You're not Steph." Somebody screamed, "You're not Steph Curry," and then nets it. And I'm like, yo, he doesn't take bad shots. Like he's calculated. He sees the game as it develops, but he also sees like 2-3 steps ahead. It has to be because he's not overly athletic. How is he able to be so crafty and so skilled and do what he does, getting into the lane, finishing left and right hands and things like that? So, yes, I'm a huge Kyrie fan, but that man is really, really like he's mastered like how to play this sport, at least on the offensive end. I'll say that.
So how did he look with the team? I mean, he's only playing with them like on away games, but how did he look with the team playing out there with James and everyone else?
James Harden seems like he's on his own planet right now. I'm starting to believe the reports that he wants out because he just looks so distant from everybody. Like
Okay.
he's not even like smiling. I didn't see him smile the entire time. Like and Kyrie and everybody else though seemed fairly fine. Like he comes out, the guys are giving him dap. I see him talking. He has a lot of conversation. I posted a video clip on my Instagram of him having an extended conversation with LaMarcus, who was not. LaMarcus played terrible. He missed like every shot that LaMarcus makes in his sleep. That 15, 20-footer.
I
He was
know,
knocking
that's
it down.
crazy. Because
And
he's
he was
actually
just
been pretty good for them this
he's been
year.
very good for them, but he had a
Yeah.
rough game, and Kyrie had to like talk to him because he picked up a bad foul from frustration, and Kyrie pulled him aside during a timeout. And I recorded that entire encounter, and I'm like, look at Kyrie being a little leader out there doing his thing. The players seem to not care at all about the outside noise. But that James Harden stuff, that stuff might start to those reports are coming out from credible sources, and the looks of it from what I saw, it just looks like he don't want to be there. James Harden looks like he does not want to be there, man. And I don't know what it is. Like maybe
So
he doesn't like how
what
Kyrie plays.
happened in that game? I didn't get to watch it because the Wolves won, right? Was it a close game?
It was a close game at first. The Wolves blew him out in the second half.
And so what did you see? Like what were the Wolves doing that like they were struggling with?
The Wolves were getting stops and they were pushing the ball. So every time James Harden didn't play well at all. I don't remember how many he scored, but he didn't play well. He picked up a technical. He got into it with forgot Buddy's name. He got into it with some dude on the Wolves. I think it was Nowell, actually, now that I think about it. And he kept grilling the dude like he didn't want the dude to keep talking. The dude was yapping at him after Anthony Edwards got an and one. And James Harden was frustrated and got a tech because he pushed the dude. He actually shoved him. But the Wolves, early on, Kyrie was cooking, which is why I was like, yo, this dude is different. He was cooking, keeping them in the game. It was a very close game up until like halftime. I think halftime, the Wolves were up like 9 or 11. Second half, they were just getting stops and running the floor. And then Anthony Edwards went on like a 8-0 run by himself. The place freaking blew up. What I noticed was they were just pushing. They were exposing Blake Griffin and pick and roll. What do you call him? Ant was putting him in a pick and roll every time and just going to the basket. And Blake didn't have the foot speed to stay with him. And then Cat got going down low. They started feeding Cat. It was like an overall
They had no
dominance.
answer for him either. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it was just like an overall second half. Like they just came out and said, let's put these guys away. And then D'Angelo just was remarkable. It seemed like he didn't miss. He had 20 and 10 and 6.
How was the Nets defense that night? I mean, it sounded like not very good.
Not very good. No, they were not very good. They couldn't stop anybody. D'Lo was getting to that elbow every time. That little elbow at the free throw. I'm like, how you know what he's gonna do? He was getting there every time. And anytime Ant got the ball, he was either fouled or going at the basket, successfully finishing. he was hitting step back threes. I'm like, yo, this is what I'm like, I know he's great. I didn't know he was like this polished player already in year two.
You know, he
But
has some games where he's not like that, but he has more games than not where he's like doing
right,
what you saw. So he's getting
right,
there.
right. No, the Nets defense definitely. I mean, Bruce Brown, he didn't play much, but when he got on the court, they were they were doing a number on him, which is weird because he's known for defense. So again, they just
Wow.
putting these guys in pick and rolls, and then D'Lo was just every time they met D'Lo off the screen, he would dish it down the cat, and it would be buckets. So I think the Nets, man, not having KD, they're definitely hurt. I didn't expect them to win that game without KD, but I also didn't expect James Harden to not play as well as he did.
But that's kind of crazy to me still. Like, I just don't think, I understand that like not having a player that you're playing like $30 million to whatever, however much Kyrie makes, like in the lineup all the time. I understand like why that's devastating, like generally speaking, but I really truly don't understand why Kevin Durant and James Harden should not be enough to like they should not like be, before it was like, oh, we had Kyrie, now Kevin Durant's out. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like Steph doesn't even have a second person who can like do that. And like they're finding ways to win without Draymond. The Suns, they keep winning whether, Booker goes down, anyone else goes down. Like to me, I feel like people are giving the Nets a pass, like when like KD or Kyrie's out. Like you still have 2 out of 3 really great scorers there. Like they should not. It like, like when I heard Kyrie wasn't going to be there for the season, I was like, the Nets should still be considered contenders. Like,
I saw that. I was like,
and
there's no way. There's no way they're winning without Kyrie Irving.
no, they're not. But like, to me, that's like a fault in the structure of their team because it shouldn't be the case. That's not to take away how great Kyrie is. What I'm saying, you shouldn't need all 3 of those guys at that level. Like you're talking about, right? Like, one top 5 player, a top 10 player in Harden, and like
I don't know if Harden's still top 10, man. That's what I was gonna say.
I'm gonna still give him top 10 because like he still had some games like that. And I don't take away status, like, like if I give credence to the idea that he was still recovering from the hamstring, which some people say, right? If I give that credence, I don't really, but I'm saying I'm gonna give that credence. Right. I just don't think that I'm ready to move him out of the top 10. Even if I do, what is it going to be, like top 15? I mean, he's still a top player, right? And you have Kyrie Irving, who, I mean, he hasn't played, so it's hard to know where you ranked him, but I always had Kyrie like sitting right outside of the top 10, also a top 15 player, right? So, I mean, most teams don't have that level of talent. Like, is Book even a top 15 player? Debatable. Devin Booker.
Oh, you trying to start something.
I'm not. You think Devin Booker's top 15? He's not top 10.
I don't think he's top 10. I think 15. He could argue that right now. I think he could argue.
Right, that's what I say, it's debatable. But that's what I mean. He's not like clear cut, but that's their best player. I mean, some people say it's Chris Paul. I disagree. But,
I still think it's Chris Paul.
Okay.
I'll listen. I'm back and forth.
It doesn't matter, but neither one of them are top 10 guys right now at this stage of their career. Right. And they have the best record in the league. Right. Draymond is a great player, right? Amazing defender, but like he can't score like those guys can, right? Like he can't. Clay hasn't been there for most of the season. Right. And so of course you have Andrew and like and Poole kicking in, but like is James Harden a better player than Poole and like Wiggins? Yes, he is. Like, what are we doing? So
I think it's about fit. Those guys have a different role. James Harden, his role, as we assume, is to go out there and carry a team and get buckets. And I don't think he could do that anymore because the rules also have hurt him. I watched him drive a lot.
I agree.
And
I agree with all of that.
He's got the picture that I posted with him in traffic. That he would get that call. He didn't get that call. There was contact, and
I agree. The rules changes definitely hurt him, and that's why I always thought like the way people like went crazy about him. And I'm like, this guy's heavily reliant on fouls. Like, was always a knock I had against him. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, he's the MVP. Kevin Durant's an MVP. I just think Giannis is getting it done. And who's his second best player? Kevin Middleton, who's good. But
Yeah.
again, what is he? Is he top 15 even? Like, this
No.
is what I'm saying. Like, all of these guys are getting it done, and we're not like saying like the Nets have three really top players, and we're saying like, oh, because they're missing one of them, it's a problem when other people are getting it done with less, is really my point.
Yeah, no, it's more than KD because their defense right now, even with KD, they can't stop it. I attended the Spurs game a couple Sundays ago at Barclays. That game went to overtime with the Spurs, who don't have a lot of offensive firepower. And
The Spurs
what's
are a pretty
buddy's
good
name? The
team
one
though
that cut
too.
off his
They're
hair
another one whose record I don't think fully reflects where they are.
reflects on their So the Nets defense is the problem. I'm looking at the box score right now. Everybody in the Timberwolves starting lineup scored at least 14 points. And, Edwards, Ant had 25, Cat had 23, D'Lo had 23, actually, not 20. McDaniels had 14, and Vanderbilt, who had the lowest, had 9. But Taurean Prince had 15 points and 2 3-pointers. Now, who I was talking about, had 16 points. The Nets don't guard the 3, and they don't have a true big who can really maneuver down low. Is it Claxton? Can he do that? But they don't play him enough.
And
They
that's
go
their
with that
problem.
slow.
They wanted to outscore everyone. That's how they wanted to win, right?
Exactly. So I don't know if it's gonna work, like, because they can't get stops on defense, like
They're not
wide
very
open
good.
threes left and right. Wide
Right
open threes left and
now.
right.
They're very talented, but they're not very good as a team
Right.
right
Agreed.
now. And so we'll
Too
see.
inconsistent. Too inconsistent. I agree.
So, okay, so we're about to play them. We, as in the Warriors, play the Wolves and then the Nets. So it's today's Wednesday. So we play the Wolves Thursday and the Nets Saturday.
In
Both at
Barclay, I'm
both at
assuming?
both at Golden State.
Okay.
Right. So this is a Dre-less version of the Warriors. I don't anticipate, honestly, getting Dre back before All-Star break. Like, they said he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, which is coming up, but it's a back injury, it's a disc. They want to be cautious. I don't think it's happening. So it's a Dre-less Warriors. And thankfully none of these games are back to back. So provided that Clay doesn't have knee soreness, he'll play. Same with Otto, because right now neither one of them play back to backs. So basically you have the full complement of the squad minus Draymond and maybe minus Andre. He has been in and out a lot. So based on that, what do you think about, like, let's talk about Mini first going up against the Warriors. So right now, the regular season series is 1-1. We got the first one in a close game. Second game, Steph and Dre weren't there, so blowout. So now they're coming to Golden State, no Dre, right? So I mean, that's gonna probably create some problems with like Karl Towns.
I was gonna say.
I mean, it's a problem even regardless. Not that like Dre can't handle it, but there's only so much Loon can do. So I don't know if it's going to be another big night for Ann Edwards, but I think you can maybe, I don't know, because Gary Payton you can probably put Gary Payton out there on him and see if he can like give him some problems. But I don't know. It's an interesting matchup. The Wolves are good. I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I don't think it's an easy game even if Draymond's playing. So I don't think it's going to be like an easy game by any stretch. So just based on like the team you just saw and like what they were doing well, and again, your knowledge of the Warriors, what do you think about that matchup?
It's a good matchup. It's interesting. Anytime you get, like you mentioned earlier, Wiggs against, Golden State, against Minnesota, it seems like he wants to turn into Andrew Jordan. So I like it for that matter. And I think the fact that Andrew talked that he talked after the last game when he, postered Cat, I think that's going to bring some incentives for Cat to try to prove Andrew it ain't sweet if they ever cross at the rim.
Well, he sort of did that in the last game where they blew us out because Andrew did play, but he didn't have the benefit of like Steph out there.
Because I thought Andrew was okay. Okay. All right. So, I think, again, I don't think that was resolved in whatever the last game was. I think Cat is not
No,
going to forget somebody
no.
basically saying, yeah, I went into you, I came down the lane and I embarrassed you, with the chip on his shoulder, right? And again, I think Ant is a problem for any team. Like you mentioned, Gary Payton is one of the best defenders that I've seen in the NBA right now, as far as like, he is so, his foot speed is just unbelievable.
But why
He
is
has
he our
good,
best lob threat and he's so small? He's
so I'm like, yo, he didn't get it from Pops because Pops wasn't jumping like that. That man is
Did you see
flying.
the joke that he made? He like kind of insinuated like, I'm not sure if this is really my son.
Yeah, right. Like, yo, I'm not sure. Like, I might need a DNA test because I don't jump like that. And your dad was an all-timer, but he wasn't that athletic. But Gary Payton, the second is a high flyer. And again, he's a great defender. He has great hands as far as like, getting steals, and his feet. He stays in front of defenders. But Ant, from what I saw, he's able to use his body. Like, he's a big body frame. He uses
Right.
that size very well, especially when driving to the basket to frame defenders away from getting to the ball to block it. And he draws fouls. Ant was at the line a lot the other night. So I think it's going to be a very good matchup. I think which Steph do we get? Do we get the declining Steph? I'm kidding, by the way. Do we get the declining Steph per Warriors Twitter, or does Steph have one of those chase games where, he lights the world on fire and we're all just like, wow, he's doing it again?
Yeah, see, the thing is, I don't know that it really matters so much. I mean, I always think it's obviously better if he's shooting efficiently, but I think with Dre out, Steph's focus is really more on being a traditional point guard.
Right.
And so, obviously, usually whenever Dre's out, you see his assist totals go up, and he's really like focused on making sure he's like setting up other players and getting them involved, which he always does, but he does it typically with his off ball movement, right? With his gravity. And now he's doing it by like, passing them the ball and, so, I think if you can make sure that you have Poole going and you have Andrew going, then it'll probably be like a really competitive game. We had no answers for Ant Edwards the first time we played, and then the second time there was like no answer for Cat. So it'll be interesting. And then we won one and we lost one, so it'll be interesting to see. I expect Kuminga to get some. Did you see that dunk Kuminga had?
I liked him since actually Summer League when he came out and was like balling. I like Kuminga a lot. So yeah, I did see him.
So I think possibly Kuminga could be a difference maker. You might put him, on one of those guys and see. Probably not Ant, but maybe you can like put him out there, with Karl Towns. I'm not sure. Because he fouls a lot, but he's so strong. So he does have the ability to bother people defensively, and we watched him do it. So we'll see. But I think Kuminga could be key in this matchup. Just with us missing Dre and needing like, someone that gives a different look. So we'll see if Kerr decides he wants to play him. Kerr is curring right now. So, and we'll just leave it at that. And so the Nets, now that we've had some Kyrie Steph duels before in the past. And we haven't had one anytime recently. And I don't know that we will, because like right now, I honestly don't know what version of Steph I'm getting. So, but I think they both get up for that matchup against one another. I think they do. So, but the defensive issues of the Nets still remain. And the Warriors are actually still a good defensive team without Dre. They don't play defense consistently as good when he's not there. And obviously they don't play it to the historic level when he's there, but they're still a good defensive team even without him. So I could see them like giving the Nets some problems.
You guys are going to kill the Nets.
Kill them?
Yes. Without.
So you think the Wolves will be competitive, but the Nets were going to kill?
Yes. Yeah. The Wolves just smacked the Nets. The Nets right now, again, their defense is bad, and they have no Kevin Durant to add to that firepower on offense. So they're really relying on Patty Mills, who had a pretty decent game, and Kyrie Irving and James Harden. And from what I watched James Harden just does not look interested in playing for that team now. Like it was
I
weird when
believe you. I believe you. It's too many reports coming out for there not to be some truth to it.
Yo, and that's when I started saying, "Wow, he really looks like I don't usually believe reports unless it comes from like Shams, because Shams ain't capping, or like Woj or something like that. And even those, like I'll have to like check in with like some of the guys that I know around the league. But like with that, I saw that I was like, yo, he doesn't look like I saw James Harden from the moment he got out of the hotel, because the Wolves practice facility is at the hotel that all the players stay at. So they have the hotel, the practice facility, even for the Wolves and the Lynx, it's in the same place. So that's where opposing teams also stay, in that hotel. I'm sitting in, just hanging out, waiting in the lobby. James Harden comes out, with some teammates, and he's just like, guys are joking. He's just like all serious. I'm just like, it was just weird. I'm like, all right, I get it. He's locked in, pregame. And then all the reports started to come out. I'm like, about him not liking, the situation, whether it's Steve Nash or how Kyrie plays offense. I'm like, yo, it's like, it makes sense. He doesn't look happy. He just doesn't look happy.
But this is like starting to be a pattern with James Harden, right? Because like he didn't want to be in Houston. So then it's like the body language and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I mean, I don't care because I clown him and, I'm not a James Harden fan, but like, that's also like problematic. Like you are still there. You're on the team. Like you're expected to like help them. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Kevin is not coming back anytime soon. So they need to figure it out, or they could take right now they have a cushion so that they, but they could slip if they just keep losing games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Nets. I'm looking forward to both games though.
We'll get. Oh, you're going to both games? You said?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying.
I was going to say you fly back out there.
No. Looking forward to watching them on TV.
I think we'll definitely get the Kyrie Steph duel. Steph is going to get up for that game, and we know Kyrie's going to get up for that game, especially.
I hope so. I would like to see that.
I think
I haven't seen my Steph in a while. I still appreciate this Steph, but we haven't seen Steph in a while, and. Yeah, I actually still think, I mean, people may think it's crazy and this could be the fan of me, but I actually think as long as he like at some point this season, if it's like a month and a half, whatever, just like goes on a little run and does like what he did last year and puts up those numbers, he's going to put himself right back in the MVP conversation.
I was just going to ask you that. Do you think he's played himself out of that?
I don't. I think, because I think, look, some voters are silly, but like the voters are like, many of them are very smart. And I've seen a lot of them saying like, look, like it doesn't look like Steph's normal numbers, but the impact is still there. Like all the numbers show like they're abysmal without him off the court. There's even with this shooting slump, like I think like it's only gone down like maybe by 1 point or 2, like in terms of like what they are on without him off. And you'd attribute the offense dipping really to him specifically, not like the team overall. So I think there are a lot of voters who look at that. And I've seen some people are still like they have him in top 5, 3, 4. And so all it takes is like just like last year, Steph wasn't in the MVP conversation most of the year. That's why I kind of laugh when people say like, oh, well, last year's the same thing with Jokic. No, Jokic has kind of been like discussed all year. Steph was not in the conversation until the end of the season when he went on that 15 to win 15 out of 20 games run. And that elevated him to 3rd. So I don't like when you're already in the conversation at the beginning of the season and your team is a 2 seed, I think it's very easy to like insert himself back in there. I just don't know if he plans to do that. I say that because just the way he speaks, I really think Steph is very focused on making sure the team is ready for the playoffs. And it might be at the expense of him getting an MVP. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, you want to win rings. So that's a sacrifice you make.
Right. Yeah. I think the only thing that keeps the Nets in the game within 10 points is Kyrie in that duel. They better hope for that duel that Kyrie takes it personal.
So that would we know Chase, right?
And we know Chase is going to be acting a fool. They're going to be wilding at Kyrie about the whole.
They could. Chase is not as like great as Oracle, but they, if you give them something to cheer for, they will. So
right. Right.
It should be, I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I would love to see that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Sean, thank you for being on. I appreciate you so much. This was a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
Guys, make sure you follow Sean, check out his work. He's so dope. You got to experience him, so you know. I'll be looking forward to the content with Buzzer. So I'm so happy for you, my friends.
Thank you. I appreciate you. That it means a lot. This was a really dope talk. We talk all the time on Twitter, but to actually sit down and just, break
Yeah.
things down and hearing that and seeing that and all this stuff, this was pretty cool. I appreciate you asking me to come on.
Definitely. Thank you. All right. Take care.
You
Until
too.
next time, guys, make sure you follow, subscribe, do all the things you need to do, download, support content creators. We appreciate it. Take care. Until next time.
Later.